Hey, good morning. Sorry, I'm still rubbing the sleep out of my eyes. So, if we haven't met before, hi, I'm Tiffany. Um, I am, if you're not in Maine, told I feel very much like Maine. So, if you get me on Saturday morning, you get me in my LL Bean pajamas because that's what I would be wearing if I weren't on a YouTube. So I haven't had a lot of time to set this up. The lighting kind of sucks. I apologize. I'm just going to go over some basics because we had a lot of questions and it's easier to point you to it. If you have any questions that pop up while I'm explaining, you can put them in the live chat. We'll kind of use that as a pinboard and I'll get back to it. This is our kids setup. So if there's clutter in the background, I have required my 7-year-old to store his craft building under the easel or it has to go in the recycle. So we've got a sort of a cascade of cardboard back here. So I'm going to start with theories. I am a moderate independent, and I'm going to use the scale that we sort of use for presidents, right? We've got D over here, we've got R over here. And, you know, the D's are all going to vote D, the R's are all going to vote R. And it's these people here. Now, this policy-wise is not necessarily centrist, though many people are. It's not necessarily moderate, though many people are. What you're looking at here, these are unenrolled voters or independents, and every state has them. You know, they veer a little bit into the parties. So Maine has more of it than most. So in the state of Maine, to get on the ballot, you have to collect signatures. And when you go around, you say, hey, I'm running for office. My name's Tiffany. I'd like to serve in the United States Senate, for example. The first thing they say is, well, what party are you? And of course, I respond with, well, geez, I'm an independent. I'm not in a party. And the response you get almost 100% of the time in Maine is, oh, me too. Now, they might say, oh, I'm enrolled in insert party here for the purposes of primaries, but I'm an independent. Now, Maine is a little bit unique in that. We fancy ourselves more independent than pretty much the whole country. Our politics don't make sense to everybody else. And I mean, we definitely do lean independent. That's why polling never works here quite as people expect. That's why people are like, oh my God, what happened in the Maine Senate race? Most people from Maine could tell you what happened, but people not from Maine are like, I don't understand. It was befuddling. We threw hundreds of millions of dollars at it and it didn't change. No, it didn't change because money doesn't really impact our elections. And these people here, whether this is a big circle or a small circle, these are the people that decide races. And they are not people that are going to really be super influenced most of the time by the mailers. In fact, they're the people who often say, oh my God, the waste is horrible. You know, I can't stand another ad. Please don't call me. I'll make the choice to not vote. Those are the people that you need to get. And their turnout really depends on not necessarily who they hate more, though it can, but a lot of times it's, you know, who annoys them less. And this is the lesser of two evils, people. I can't really speak to Dems. I'm not a Democrat, never been a Democrat. I can speak to a segment of Republicans because I grew up Republican, so I speak their language okay. But I can't really speak for the platform now. It's been decades since I was, you know, affiliated with that party in any way. What I can tell you is these people here, the people you need to win elections, they're my people. So even if this is a really small slice, you know, in some races, it might only be 5% of the voters. These are the people that I can help you with because this is who I am. This is who a lot of independents are. And so to get to these people, you telling them the other people are bad, and the Maine Senate race should have showed everybody that that is a super ineffective strategy. It does not help you at all. What it does do is it makes them either get so discouraged they don't vote, or they give wrong information to pollsters because they're just sick of being, you know, my phone rang off the hook. So I have a home line that I've never given out to anybody. It goes to the grandparents and that's it. So the kids can call the grandparents. And it just rang off the hook with polls, like probably at least 5 a day. At the end, I had one day where it was in excess of 10 people calling. It was bad. There was the communication during this last election cycle in Maine was horrible. And Maine's a cheap media market, so your bang for buck goes pretty far. And so in Maine, we had an election cycle where there was probably more money thrown than they could find places to spend it. And if we're looking at Georgia coming up, I think that we're pretty close to there. I would guess people will throw tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars at that race. So instead of quadrupling down on a really bad strategy, which is what we keep seeing in Maine, if this happened in 2018, and I tried to warn them in 2018, like, stop doing this, you're going to lose the next election if you employ these strategies. For some reason, the consultants and powers that be took, oh gosh, that was a squeaker, so we better do more of the bad stuff. So in 2017, I came up with what I call Maine raising, and we hashtagged it. So if people only remembered to do one thing, if they only remembered to put the hashtag, the recipient of these things, you don't even have to write a note. You can just put hashtag Maine raising. The recipient would Google it. Is everybody going to Google it? No. And what I thought is, I need a way to send resources to our community, because if you value something, if something's important to you, instead of just talking about it and running awful, oh, that needs to be mirrored, doesn't it? Let me do this again. Hang on. How do I mirror this? There's got to be a way to mirror this. I cannot write backwards. On. All right, I'm gonna have to figure out how to write backwards. So there has to be a way to take all those resources and put them back in the community. And what's our return on investment? So looking at this, we I was like, okay, so how do we do it? So there were some rules. I needed to not touch the money. So one of the most corrupting things in politics is buying influence of politicians. So I needed to not know who was giving what to who. I needed to not be a part of the transaction. I needed to remove myself from that. I also needed to make sure the resources went to not necessarily worthy causes. Like, a lot of the times I'm telling people buy from a small business, and I don't check their political affiliation, because you never know who you're going to win over. I just say buy from a small business. But that went to the right sorts of causes. We want to support small and local businesses. The big businesses, not only are they not going to be politically moved by this, but it doesn't really benefit them the same way it benefits a small business. So look for small businesses. And then I really wanted ways to address, like, struggling families with homelessness, with food insecurity. But GoFundMes are very ethically perilous for politicians, because it looks like you're buying somebody off. So you definitely, if a politician is doing this or endorsing this, you want to stay away from GoFundMes or anything that isn't run through a 501c3 or a school. I did have people donate directly to schools, but again, those are established not-for-profits. So what we did is we said, all right, so the message and the resources need to go to people. It needs to be sort of like gossip. Everything needs to be an arm's length transaction, so that there's no increase or decrease in value from adding the message. You're not like getting a special deal because I'm selling this to you, or I'm telling you to go to this resource. So what we did is we asked people to put a note in, only upbeat. So don't write a note about, oh my gosh, Susan Collins is a big old meanie head. Please don't vote for her, right? Vote for Tiffany. That was not the kind of messaging we wanted. And I will put up samples. There's actually samples in my pinned tweet of the kind of things, it's in that thread, of the kind of notes that people would write. Like, hey, I found your store going through Maine raising, and Tiffany wouldn't take my money, and she told me to just invest in the community. That's where she wants these resources to go. And what happened is I could start telling. I couldn't tell how much of it was being done. I couldn't tell who was doing it. But what I could tell is that it was being done. And the way I could tell it was being done is I started getting emails. Hey, who are you? I've never heard of you before, but somebody just bought something from my Etsy store or from my small business, and they said, hang on just a second. I don't need to write backwards. It looked fine. I mean, if you guys can read backwards, I've never actually written on a whiteboard on YouTube before. I've done it in other forums, but not with YouTube. With Zoom, it's really easy to flop. So maybe I should do Zoom next time. So and if anybody knows how to reverse YouTube, let me know. So yeah, so what we did is, as people were doing this, I was starting to get communication. And the problem wasn't that it's not effective. The problem was not enough resources were thrown at it. So in both of the races that I was in, particularly this last one, the amount of money thrown at the race was like a tsunami. It was this overwhelming, drowning force, and it didn't work. It didn't work in the main Senate race. It didn't work in several Senate races around the country. This works because you get much better return on investment. So those flyers end up costing about $1 a piece, more if they're an envelope that's sealed. And how many were we all getting a day, even if we weren't in some place like Maine? It was a lot. So you can take those same resources. I think in 2018, I haven't seen stats published for 2020 yet, but I think in 2018, I want to say that direct spend, not outside groups, the candidate who won was in a $30 to $35 range. It was a lot per vote. And for $30 to $35, you can buy something great and convert somebody to a new way of thinking about politics. So there's two options. One is a charity. So, gosh, I hate writing on this. I can't write backwards. So I'll just talk about it. I'm going to ditch the whiteboard for this one. We'll do a new one when I figure out how to change this. Forgive my messy home. So I will just set this up so it's a little bit easier. The lighting in this house is not great first thing in the morning. So, if you're looking for a charity, any charity will do. The most effective is Donors Choose, because you get to help a individual teacher. And teachers, I love teachers. They're very chatty. They're good at sharing resources. And if you looked at my Twitter feed this morning, you can see me saying that, like, the problem with teachers is that after the first day of funding Donors Choose projects, you can never, ever keep track of how many that you funded again, which for me was actually a benefit. I did not want to know the scale of it. I just wanted it to become this slow, bubbling, overwhelming source of resources and votes. But you can't, because they start talking to each other and going, oh my gosh, there's somebody funding projects, get your project up. And so the projects, you can't watch the projects go down, because they just start adding more and more and more projects, because there's so much need. So that already started happening by this morning. There are already a whole bunch more projects on there, because the teachers are smart and they talk to each other, and they know when somebody's helping them. And they're really good at sharing that information. They share it with other teachers, they share it with parents, they share it with staff, they share it with neighbors. Some of my most zealous advocates in campaigning have been teachers. And the sentiment that I've gotten from them is, you know what? People wear like red t-shirts for education, but they don't fund us. No matter who's in charge, I still end up buying my own school supplies. And so I don't know who to vote for most of the time, because they're not helping us. And you'll see that with a lot of the charities, like even food banks. There's huge need right now, and they're so grateful for everything that they get, but they need a lot more. So when you're doing the charity thing, you pick a charity that's important to you. It doesn't have to be Donors Choose. It doesn't have to be a food bank. It can be anything that's important to you. It can be domestic violence shelters. We in Maine, and they probably don't have anything too much like this in Georgia, because it doesn't get quite as cold. We have heating funds. We have not-for-profits that help people get housing security and do down payments on housing. There are so many different not-for-profits. There are thousands in every single state. Georgia is much more population dense than Maine is, so there's probably tens or hundreds of thousands of not-for-profits. I haven't looked. And again, the key is whether or not you want to leave a message, because for some people it is very awkward to write a blurb. It's easier, I think, and less socially awkward for people who are socially awkward to do Maine raising than other types of campaign help. In fact, I've had a few of my volunteers be like, yes, it's campaigning for the socially awkward. But for some people, writing a note is really hard. And if they don't necessarily know much about the candidate, like, I don't know a huge amount about the Democratic candidates down there, because I was caught up in my own race. But boy, I know that Kelly Loeffler shouldn't be anywhere near Congress, right? I know she needs to be gone, because she engages in insider trading. Oh my gosh. So, if you don't have anything nice to say, or you find it awkward, you can just put the hashtag and tell your friends to do the hashtag. Same thing with shopping. It doesn't matter what you buy. Buy anything, anywhere, anything you want, anywhere in the state. These are statewide races. You can go in a really rural area. You can go in an urban area. You can go anywhere. Small towns are great because people talk to each other a lot, but big towns work too. People talk to people in their apartment building. So what you want to do is generate good gossip. And you'll know that this is successful when you start hearing about it on the news, or when you start getting emails from people, or when you start hearing people talk about it just generally. Sometimes the news doesn't pick it up. It's a great feel-good story. I was not a party candidate. As somebody who was not a party candidate, I was excluded from a phenomenal amount of media coverage. A party candidate will get news for this. They will get street cred, even if they're doing just a tiny little bit. For example, I think AOC started doing some direct donations, and I've been doing that stuff for years. I got no press coverage, but she got huge press coverage from being able to do direct donations. And the media that she got was worth far more than the resources she put in on it. And that's what's great about doing Maine raising, or in this case, we're going to convert it to Georgia raising, is you get so much more out of it than what you put into it. Not only do you foster goodwill because it feels nice to help people. Politics doesn't have to be gross. Instead of it being a slash fest every year, it could simply be, hey, we are at the process, our regular process of evaluating how we want to handle our government and what ideas we want to float and work with. Let's celebrate it by investing in our communities. We could absolutely do that. Hang on just one sec. Will you let your dog in? He's being a little barky.
And where?
He's outside. Thank you so much. Sorry. So I am definitely a mom all the time. I'm definitely on deck, and I'm definitely in my living room. One of the things that I think happened a lot in, one of the things I think happened a ton in the Senate races this year is there wasn't a whole lot of authenticity. There is this theory, and I don't know where the heck it comes from. There is this theory that if people are super polished and sanitized and don't say anything controversial, that everybody will love them. And that's just not true. People don't like things that don't feel real. And so much of this doesn't feel real. So, Maine raising, Georgia raising, feels real. It's helping people. And that's one of the things that I think is lovely, is you can create the space where we're really helping people. So I own a small business. I really wanted to roll this out to small businesses too. And if you're wondering if this is going to be effective, if you have a small business and somebody places an order with you, one of the first things you ask, if you have the opportunity to interact with them, is, how did you find me? Did somebody refer you? I want to know how I'm getting business here. And we have the opportunity to offer that affirmatively and have the introduction to the campaign, instead of it being a horrible ad or a mailer or somebody knocking on your door at 8 a.m. on Saturday when you do not have pants on yet. It's a serendipitous interaction. It is a serendipitous introduction to a candidate where you on your own time and at your convenience, as a small business, you're bringing it up. And in the notes, there's something that says, hey, I found your small business and I wanted to buy these earrings or these shoes or whatever it is. Our dog has decided to become a lap dog, and he is a very big 4-month-old puppy. Hi. Did you decide to join? Yes. Are you being delicious? Hi. Yeah. You're very friendly. So this is Gunner. He's a very friendly new puppy. So yeah, this is a great way to do it. And so I've had people be like, oh my gosh, you lost. Yeah, the resources weren't there. The bang for the buck is there. This is the thing everybody says they want, right? We have this thing. Why are we wasting all this money in politics? Why aren't we investing in our communities? Let's try it. Instead of basically setting millions of dollars on fire, what would the outcome have been? How would it have been different? For example, in Maine, there was about 200 million in the system. And I think I want to say 68 or 70 million that was direct spend. If $70 million had been spent on making sure this winter that nobody was housing insecure, that people could afford to buy Christmas presents for their kids, that businesses were doing okay in a pandemic, we would have had a different race, and it takes a different candidate to do that kind of race. But I'm telling you, that would have beat Susan Collins. hands down, she would have been gone. Because the thing that Susan Collins has going for her is everybody sees her as the person who helps Maine. And she's good at it. She's good at getting fat. She's good at arranging photo ops. She's excellent at it. And if you want to knock out somebody who's seen as helping the state, you help the state more. So I hope that was a good introduction. I didn't see any other comments pop up other than that I didn't need to write backwards, but I do have to figure that out for the next one of these. If you have any questions, find me on Twitter. You know, this is not benefiting me directly this time. It is benefiting democracy. So let's fix our democracy. Let's use the market for the good part of the market. You know, every force has a good and a bad, and market forces are often punitive, but they can also be really helpful. So thank you so much. Find me on Twitter, and I hope you have a wonderful Saturday. I'm going to go get caffeinated.